everyone, it's Ayozia here. So with part 2 of the Boho journal craft with me. I'm currently, it's Friday evening now. It's Friday the 11th of January, and I'm just got a quiet moment this evening to do a little bit more work on the journal. I probably won't do very much because it's quite late, but I just haven't had a chance to do anything on it today because I've been busy. I've been out and about. So yesterday I made the cover and assembled some of the pages, so that's all in part 1. And what I'm currently doing is making well, attempting to make, shall I say, or playing with, I'm just playing really with making some boho type beads. Now this is by no means a tutorial, absolutely not a tutorial, because this is the first time I ever made anything like this, so I don't actually know how durable this is going to be, but I will put a link in the description box to a tutorial that would be helpful for doing these. But at the moment, the ones that I have watched, I think require you to have a straw. And I just don't have a straw. I don't know why. But I don't have any straws in the house, like plastic straws. And so what I do have in abundance is scraps of paper. So I thought to myself, why don't I see what I can do using rolled up bits of paper and fabric and wire and beads. And so I've got these little teeny, well, I don't even know whether to go as far as calling them beads, but what I did was I got a strap of paper like that and cut it you know, quite thin. So I'll just use a little, well, actually I've got some ribbon, here we are. So and just use the glue stick. As I say, this is just me just playing as I go along. And I just stuck that down. I've run out of the gold ribbon I was using, but I've got some here, so I just had ribbon and then the gold, a smaller bit of gold ribbon. So in this case I had a strip of this blue silk and then a strip of the gold. And then what I'm then doing is I'll just put a little bit of glue on, a teeny bit, because you only need a little bit. And then you kind of roll it a few times. It is fiddly. I don't like fiddly things, but this is quite fiddly. But I don't know, for some reason, don't seem to mind. And the aim is that you have a little hollow in the middle, like a cylinder, but there's still a bit of a gap in which you can pass a bit of wire through. And that's got glue on, and then you can see it's all unraveling. There we go. I'm going to stick that down very well. Let me see. The other thing I'm not a big fan of is glue on my hands. So considering I don't like fiddly jobs and glue on my hands, this is surprising that I'm doing this. So then you end up with a little cylinder of paper and ribbon all glued together, but there's a little hole in the middle through which you can pass through your wire and stuff. And then what I'm doing, I tried this with a needle and thread, which you can do if you don't have, I'll do one with a needle and thread if you don't have wire. But chances are, if you're into doing this sort of stuff, you probably will. I've got the worst wire in the history of wire because, I don't know, it's really thin. I was using some better wire before, but I ran out of that. So I just made a knot, and then I have these little teeny beads that I'm working with, and the idea is I'm using wire, but then I did one, I think I did this one with needle and thread and then wound it with wire, but I'll do it with a needle and thread just so you can see what to do. So I have glued it, but as always, I never trust my gluing because it's not very good. So I'm just using the thread to make sure you see that it's stitched, and then as I'm going along I'm adding some little beads. Some of them don't go over my needle, which is, yes, you see what I mean by fiddlies. These little beads, and then you can sort of sew them around your paper and ribbon disc. I thought I would try paper because it's light. Ouch. And it's quite nice, although I've used, you know, regular beads as well. So yeah, that's the idea, you know, like if you're using a needle and thread. I think if you had a straw, it'd be sturdier because the paper is not very sturdy, so it's the shape is not holding its cylindrical shape very well as I'm handling it, although it does still end up looking fairly cylindrical. But you get the idea of what I'm trying to do, hopefully. Can you even see that? So that's what it looks like. But I will use wire because I like the look of it. But yeah, this is just an alternative in case you didn't have any wire and you wanted to add beads. You could use needle and thread. So and I put that extra bit of thread. Yeah, and I don't mind that there's paper poking out because, you know, it's all paper, it's a journal. So now I'm going to wind some wire around it anyway. And probably thread through a few more of those little beads. And the wire just makes it feel a bit sturdier. And it looks nice because it's gold or silver or whatever, copper, whatever wire you use. So like with this one's paper as well, but I don't know, it feels much more solid. I think I must have used a different method. It feels more solid than this one. Don't know, maybe this one wasn't hollow in the middle. I just used and then I was still able to poke the wire through. Anyway, that is paper covered in fabric, and mind you, I used a few more layers of fabric, so that's probably why it's sturdy, and really, really good wire, so that feels very strong. And you can, so like I've done here, you can thread your, it won't work with this wire because it's too thin. You can thread your wire through and then attach a, this is the bead that I just made. And then if you could put wire through and do, you know, like you could, like that, you could add wire through and a bead, and then make a little thing, a hoop loop, and then add beads at the top and a loop there, and then that would attach to a paper clip. But as I say, there are proper tutorials about this stuff, but that's what I've just been making in case you couldn't see. And that's one I made earlier. I think they're super cute, and they're really light because they're made of paper and a little bit of fabric and beads, and they'll just go on the end of, so let's say I just, they'd hang, I don't know if you can see that, like that. And that's the idea anyway. So I'm just going to have maybe 2 or 3 of those hanging from paper clips off the journal. So that's what I was doing. Okay, onwards and upwards. So I'm just going to assemble, what am I going to do now? I'm going to put some fabric tabs on some of the pages, and then I'm going to stitch the pages, bind the pages, but again I'm not going to show that because I always get in a model, so this is not a very good craft with me so far because I'm not showing very much of the process, but I'll show enough that you get an idea of what I'm doing. So both bead making and bookbinding, there are better tutorials out there than I could ever show you. So I'm just going to gather some scrap bits and pieces of fabric to make some tabs, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have some bits and pieces of fabrics already, you know, that I used for the cover, the bits and pieces that I had, and I'm just gonna cut just a few little rectangles that I'm gonna stitch onto the pages to act, just to embellish them a bit more. The journal's pretty plain on the inside. There are going to be a few journaling cards. This is really lovely. This is silk, this is. So yeah, I'm just cutting them into, this is silk as well. It's lovely. And I just think it will add a bit more, I don't know what to say, decoration or luxury or whatever to the journal. So I've got some of that already. This is silk as well. I used this silk in on the cover. I do have some blue, some turquoise silk somewhere, so I might go and fetch some of that as well, because that will look nice. I'm not going to add a tab to every page, but just the odd page here and there. Okay, so I have some bits, got this lovely collection. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the tabs on with some with a glue stick and then stitch them. Page. It's going to be like that. Well, let me stick one on. That's one way to find out. I can always use a different piece of paper if I really don't like it. I don't know if that's in frame, I hope so. I will stitch this because it looks, I just like the look of stitching. This is the zigzag stitch after I've stuck it down. So that's one. Oh, that's okay, you can barely see it. You can't see it poking out. I think I just wasn't keen on having it poking out too much from the cover. But the way I've done that is okay. So that's one. And then this one I won't, I'll just stitch that on. Probably don't need one there, maybe just spread them out a bit. That is quite bulky, that one. Yeah, that's nice. Good, good, good. And the good thing about having fabric tabs is that you can attach some charms to them and they won't rip the paper. There's loads and loads in here. It's probably enough for the first signature. And the second signature. Oh, I do want to sew a ruffle on here. On that page, so I'll keep that free, and then I'll do the same that I did on the first signature. Okay, so that's what that one looks like with the tabs, and this one looks like that. So I'm just going to stitch these down and then I'll be back and I'll show you how I do a ruffle. But I have to tidy my desk. I haven't even got room for the sewing machine at the moment. There's just stuff everywhere, so I'm going to do that. Okay, I'm going to sew these now with a zigzag stitch. One down, many more to go. Okay, I finished stitching these on, and I really like how they look, so that each one has got like a little bit of stitching, zigzag stitch, and yeah, it just looks really nice. I added a few extra bits, so I added that bit of fabric there, and this one I think was an extra piece. So now what I'm going to do is for the second signature, I did it with the other journal. Let me show you. I had a little ruffle poking through, poking out the edge. So I'm going to show you how I did that. So, Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do a ruffle. I did try it with a different piece of fabric, but it was fraying too much. So I want to make a ruffle for this page, for the front and the back of it. And so you need a strip of fabric that's quite a bit longer than the actual page. And you want to choose the longest stitch, straight stitch that you have on your machine and stitch down the middle. But the key thing is that you leave a tail at the top and you don't back stitch on either end so that you can pull it to ruffle the fabric. I'll show you what I mean. So there's a tail of thread there, and I'm just going to straight stitch down the middle without back stitching. And so I have a tail at the top and a tail at the bottom, and you want to grab, and so you have, your tail is made up of 2 threads, and you want to grab only one of those threads and pull it gently to ruffle your fabric. And you can also pull the other end, but only pull one of the threads. That's a very, so, and then you just spread it out as you want on the page. I probably needed a longer bit of fabric actually to get a really nice ruffle. And then I'm just going to stick that down with a glue stick just to secure it before I stitch it. Or you could just use your fiber tack or whatever, and you wouldn't need to stitch it. Yeah. And I can cut off my ends now because I don't need them anymore. And I'm going to do that with the other side as well. And then I'll probably, to secure it, just go back over that stitching on the machine to secure it. That's what it looks like. I did another line of stitching over it, so you just got one line of stitching there, one line of stitching there, and I wanted that to be that way because the first page of the second signature is quite narrow, and I just like the fact that the ruffle is poking out from the side of that. And also here I took 2 bits of this embroidered flower on either side and stitched that, so you've got that on both sides. So I quite like that as well. So now I'm pretty much getting to the point where I'm going to bind the journal. I need to iron this. I was watching the video back from yesterday. I was like, wow, it looks so crumpled. So I will iron it to straighten it out a little bit. I think I can iron it. I'll do a very light iron. And then I should have ironed it before I stitched it. You see, preparation is key with all these things. And then I'm going to bind it. But yeah, this is all I'm going to do. Now I have some tags that I'm going to decide where to put them. I also have some artwork prints that I'm going to include. And then when I when I include, you know, like if I have a print or a tag, I've got one of these, you know, that I made earlier. So just sort of decide where I want to put the tags. I don't know, I'm just sort of doing this for illustration purposes, and then put my things, and then I'll have a few charms and bits and pieces sticking out the bottom. The other thing I do need to do as well is to attach, I made a tassel to go on the side, so I'm going to attach that with I bought some, don't know where they are at the minute, some book rings, you know, so I'll attach that. But you'll see all of this stuff when I do a final flip through of the video, probably the next day or two. But yeah, I think this is, I'm going to call it a day because it's super late and I'm really tired. Yeah, so these are the, I was going to make a tag on here, but you know, I just sort of collaged and stitched and then backed it with paper and stitched. And so I'll add those in as well. So yeah, it's looking really colourful, my goodness. Yeah, these are the most colourful journals I ever made. I hope someone will like them, because they are really colourful. Actually, this is a tuck spot, so I'm going to stitch that down somewhere. So that's just some sample, upholstery sample card that I sewed this ribbon onto. So I could either back that with paper to make it a journaling card, or I will put it somewhere in the journal as a tuck spot. I'm not sure where. Somewhere. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if that was... It's quite late at night, so my brain doesn't work very well in the evenings. So I probably wasn't as jolly as I could be. I don't know if I was or not, but... that will be, this is the end of the journal, my part 2. So the next time you see this journal will be when I'm flipping it through, and I'm going to list these in my Etsy shop. I've got 3 of them. Probably in the next 2 or 3 days. It'll take me a little while to finish all of them. But I'm really loving, so loving the way that is looking, with the bits of charms and things poking out. This journal is making me so happy. Yeah, just imagine that's poking out. I can't bother to even clip that in. Anyway, lots of love. Have a good night, or morning, evening, afternoon, morning, you know, midday, wherever you are. And until next time, lots and lots of love. Bye bye.